Hello and welcome back to another installment of Horror Vision 2020. That's right, still a safer at home edition of entertainment for you. And today I'm happy to introduce you to a man that really needs no introduction. He is incredibly charming and even more so handsome. I mean that sincerely, Costas Mandylor. So I look forward to you guys tuning in to this interview and hear what he has to say about the Saw franchise, Picket Fences, stories about being on set, and a lot more. He's awesome. Had an incredible time interviewing him and talking with him, and that's the beauty of Horror Vision 2020 is a candid conversation with people that you love. And we're going to continue to bring it to you nonstop throughout quarantine and throughout the rest of our lives on this world. Horror Vision 2020. Coming at you. Ow! Delicious. Just like you.
Nice. I know. It's quite a change for me living here from Michigan. So.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
By the way, when are they going to open up the doors for you up there again?
I don't know, but we are doing our show in July so far. So hopefully you can still make it. And
If I'm not working, I'm coming. I want to go back. I want to visit Greektown and have fun with you guys.
Yeah, he's from Michigan. Jim's from Michigan too.
Really?
I gave him a leading role in a couple of our movies with
Wonderful.
James Russo and Daniel Baldwin and Dee Wallace. They were in some of those.
Really? Russo?
Yeah.
How's Russo? Does he come to your shows?
I try to get him. He says, I'll come, and then he doesn't show up because he says, I'm afraid no one's going to be in my line or whatever, So.
Really? Next time you invite him, and he's like, I'm afraid, say, listen, I talked to Mandylor. He said, don't be afraid. You can hang out with him, and he's table full of people.
Okay. I'll tell him that. Yep. I should call him because I'm sure he's going stir crazy with those two kids.
I'm sure. Well, he's a survivor, though. He's a fucking animal.
I love. Were you on Hawaii Five-0 with him?
No, I've known him for years, though.
Oh, okay.
I've always had a lot of fun with him.
All right, cool. So, are we ready to start?
Yeah, just let me. I'm just gonna follow the law here.
All right.
Can you hear me good?
I can.
Yeah.
Is that good for you, Jim?
Yeah, man, I hear you loud and clear.
All right. Can you do it sideways? Can
Yep.
you tilt the phone? Is that better for editing?
Oh yeah, that's
Yes, way
good.
better for editing.
Wonderful.
So you can see all three. I'm recording it. It has all three of us on it. So,
Beautiful.
all right. Welcome to Horror Vision 2020. I'm Tommy Brunswick here with Jim Lewis, co-host, and our guest today is Costas Mandylor. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's kind of sexy the way you said it.
See how charming it is?
Say it again.
Costas Mandylor.
Oh.
I love when my guests flirt with me. So, yes. All right. So, we're just here just to talk to you a little bit. We're going to put this on Motor City Nightmares, and also wanted to tell you a little bit about Horror Vision 2020, which is a new virtual convention that we're putting together, and this is part of it. So
Very ingenious. Good.
Yeah, we've been planning it actually for like 3 months or 4 months. So we didn't know this was going to happen. We were going to do this anyway.
Great.
Yeah, we wanted to do it, live, like in a studio and have, more interactive. But then this damn coronavirus thing happened, and it makes sense to, try to bring, you and everybody else to the people that can't reach out.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Glad to be here.
We are going to do this virtually for now, but we do have we had things scheduled to pitch to AMC and to a couple other cable channels for this. So hopefully that'll work out after.
Good.
But for now,
let's hope they get smart.
Yeah, for now we're doing this, and everybody is we just started putting stuff up today. So we just want to talk to you a little bit about. So how did you get started? Because you are from Australia, but you're Greek, correct?
Yeah. Well, I was born in Australia to Greek parents, so I'm a Greek Aussie, as they say. But I was completely into athletics when I was young. I love boxing and soccer and things like that, and Australian rules football. So I was kind of a jock and didn't love school too much. Although when I look back now, I wish I loved school just a little bit more, because when you learn to read and study certain things in school, it always helps you later on in life. Because I have a hard time reading. I can read. My punctuation is terrible apparently on my texts. So I wasn't great at school, and now I kick myself in the butt. So whoever's listening, school's good. Even if you're a rebel, school's good.
School is good. Yes.
Take it from me. And yeah, and I ended up playing soccer and on a professional level. And I haven't talked about this for a long time, because when I first began my career, they ask you all this kind of stuff, and it seems interesting, and you hate repeating yourself, but it hasn't been talked about for a long time. So I'll say I got injured, came to America to see a friend, completely because I couldn't run for a year. I had shin splints, which is a very common thing with dancers and stuff. And it's really excruciating pain. So I took some time off, went to LA in '89, and was so intrigued with LA, because back then it was, Sunset Boulevard, rock and roll, Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard restaurants. It was still somewhat old school. And every now and then I'd walk through Beverly Hills and see Kirk Douglas and all the old movie stars and Gregory Peck. And I like that era of actors, right? So it was all magical back then to me. But people came up to me, and some unsavory characters, not sure what they were up to, going, hey, you should get into the movie business, because apparently I was cute back then, right? And I was just savvy enough to avoid the dregs of society, which, I mean, it's happening now. We won't get into the sad stuff, but I was, 22 years of age, and I knew how to protect myself. And I ended up finding good people and getting into acting classes, and I found it intriguing because it was about human behavior. And I was always into that because I grew up kind of street savvy. I grew up around a lot of rough and tumble people in Melbourne, Australia. And when I go back, they're all still there, apart from the ones that are, 6 feet under. But a lot of the people that I grew up with gave me an education about life and instinct. And then when you went to class, it was all about that. But you had to read and know what you're talking about and what you're reading and how you're going to put it on the screen. You have to understand what you're reading. So all these new challenges came, and I just found it fascinating, and I became an actor.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what were your first roles?
Well, the first role, I'll just throw it out there and say, I got a phone call. Oh, there was a period and it was when Rambo 3 first came out. No, Rambo 1 first came out. It was this huge hit. And I remember I used to walk up and down Sunset Boulevard going, we're here. Eventually I got some pictures taken, the simplest stuff. Get your pictures, resume. What resume? I'm a soccer player, boxer, part-time boxing, blah, 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 whatever it was. Can you ride a horse? Yeah, bullshit. I started lying. I'm like, it's not worth lying, because if they put you on a horse, you'll fall off. So I knew not to bullshit. But what I did have was the guts to walk into offices. And one of the famous office back then was Coralco Pictures.
I'm sorry, what
Mario
was it?
Casar
It broke up. What was it?
It was called Coralco Pictures. And back then they were making the biggest movies in Hollywood. Rambo was one of them. And it was Mario Casar, who to this day, I think I'm going to see him soon, but it's been a long time. But Andy Vanya, these big producers, they were the blockbuster guys in the 90s. Well, actually the late 80s and 90s. And I remember going in there going, hey, is Sylvester Stallone here? They're like, no. I'm like, oh, can I just drop off my picture and resume? I didn't know I had to go through, various other people back then. And they were very friendly and sweet. And I guess I wasn't like a cuckoo bird. But I walked out of that building, and just across the street was a little place called Old World Pictures, right behind a famous bar there that was called Red Rock. Now it's called the Social State House. It's a very famous corner on Sunset Boulevard where Tower Records was across the street.
Okay,
and the famous, I'll never forget this too. It's just funny. I haven't really brought this up. Across the street, across from Tower Records, from where Old World Pictures was a very famous restaurant called Spago. Yeah. And Spago in the late 80s and 90s is where they had the Academy Award parties. And I remember walking by there one time, and it was Academy Awards. And I distinctly remember Richard Dreyfuss getting out of a limousine And all these people were outside going, who's coming out of the limos? And they'd walk up a short staircase and go in there and overlook sunset in LA. And it's funny, you know, I've never really thought about this, but around about 88, 89, 91, 90, around about 92, I ended up doing a show called Picket Fences.
I love that show.
And we won Emmys a lot. Yeah. And I would get picked up in my casa with the limo, and I'd be like, where are we going? They go, Spago. And it never even crossed my mind that that's the place I used to watch people go in, all the famous movie stars go into. Now I'm hanging out with David Kelly.
Wow.
And everybody from NYPD, blah, 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 blah. That's where they had the big parties. So I went there for 4 years in a row. Then I started hanging out there as a patron, thinking I'd made it, you know, and looking at blah. And then I used to hang out with Anthony Quinn, Don Rickles, and Ricardo Montalban on Friday nights. They used to call me up. So, by the way, sorry to the audience, I'm flooding this. It's just coming to my mind now. But it all began there. Back to Old World Pictures. I gave my pictures to a woman that was quite friendly. I guess she was the assistant to the guy that ran Old World Pictures. And about 2 weeks later, I get a phone call. And it's like, you know, Costas, yeah. And I was rooming with like 4 guys then, like everybody did. People room with everybody. It's a famous thing. Everybody used to, you know, nobody had money. They'd go and live on a couch on the balcony. And I went to I went to a hotel to meet a guy. And his last name was Puzon, from what I remember. And he was a producer from the Philippines. And when I got there, I was like, okay, so you know, what have you done? I've done nothing. I've been going to acting class, and I loved it. And people like Josh Brolin, who is still a friend, who's become a juggernaut because he deserves the talent, because he's talent. He deserves the success because he has the talent, and he's a great, warm friend. But there was many others. I could drop a lot of names now, but Josh is one. I just spoke to him the other day. But it's where we all began, you know, young guys that were trying to learn how to do it. And Josh was already in the game and knew a lot. And he's had a resurgence that I'm happy for him. But I remember getting called up to the room, and I was in class, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? He goes, well, have you ever done any fighting? I said, yeah, I can box a little bit, and I can throw some kicks. He goes, okay, take off your top and do something. And then I went, oh no, is this going to get weird? But I actually had a tank top on, a guinea tee, and I jumped off the chair, and I went bing, boom, boom, ba, da, you know, threw a few combos, and I go, there's nobody there to hit, but he goes, yeah, I think you can do it, yeah. So I ended up in the Philippines, and I got paid, I think it was $4,000 back then, which was like huge money because I was living on the floor. And my acting coach said, well, I don't know what this is, but come back safe. And she had let me study for free. You kind of look like Josh Brolin right now with the goatee. Anyway, it's true. I just took a look at you. Handsome.
Told you worked with everyone.
I know,
man.
Thank you.
Holy shit. Damn,
Keep
putting
it
in the
coming,
movie.
bro.
Oh, you bet. Handsome. I must tell you, without losing track, he ended up going, yeah. And the acting coach had let me study for nothing at the beginning because I promised I would pay, which I did. Her name was Janet Elhanty. And she's passed away now, and we were supposed to be at her funeral or an homage to her right around 22nd of March. And obviously now we have other issues, but and they're going to redo it. But what happened was I ended up in the Philippines, and I was making a movie. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was fit. And that was my first experience in the films. And I learned some things. I also got caught in a coup attempt against the Aquino. She was the prime minister after the Marcos back then, right? So we went to shoot on the first day. I was in the gym, and I could hear people on the radio talking about stuff in Filipino. And I'm like, what's going on? All of a sudden, the soldiers started showing up. And I'm like, this is too weird. And all of a sudden, there were planes were flying from up above, and there was machine gun fire. The guerrilla forces were fighting against the government. And for a week, they locked us in a hotel room. And all we had to do was drink scotch and swim in the pool and listen to the gunfire. So that was my first introduction to films. I'm sorry, it was. It's all coming. It's flooding back. I'll keep the story shorter at this point. But it began with that film. And to be honest, went back to class, paid the lady, thanked her for believing in me. And then everybody started really studying. And I started to get off the floor. And I got an apartment with a couple of other guys overlooking the Chinese theater. it was all weird back then because Hollywood Boulevard was rough and tumble. It had its glory days, then it got really rough, prostitution, street people, drugs, and now it's become Disneyland. But that's what it was like back then at the end of the 80s. And then I'll stop and say to you, my first real film was with Willem Dafoe, Robert Loggia, Eddie Olmos, produced by Arnold Kopelson, around about a year after that, called Triumph of the Spirit. And that's where it began.
Was that the soccer or football one?
No, that was way later with Gerard Butler.
Okay.
This was my first real Hollywood motion picture with serious people, and we ended up in Auschwitz, Poland, and Birkenau for 2 months in the freezing cold snow, and back then the Iron Curtain hadn't come down yet, so it was like Poland was really a cold, stark place. And then we ended up in Israel to shoot the beginning of the film, and summertime had come. And I'll never forget, we ended up flying with everybody from the crew and Arnold Kopelson on one of those propeller jets. And apparently they're safer than the other ones. So, we were panicked at first. But we land in Israel. We get off the plane. We're all pasty white with shaved heads from the Holocaust. And apparently they thought that we were German, like Schwarzsticker guys. And they locked us up. Me and Willem got locked up at the airport for like 6 hours, and Israeli intelligence had to be called to come and get us to prove that we were not somebody strange.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
That's how it began. And I'm with Dafoe. I go, they're going to get me out. I'm with Willem Dafoe, who that year was nominated for Platoon. I said, the guy's a renowned actor. We're going to get out. But it took him a while. Anyway, that's the beginning of what happened.
Yeah. So I saw a movie with you a long time ago. I love the movie, even though people laugh about it. It's called Dino Croc with Bob Winters, right?
Yeah.
I love that movie. I love you in that.
Well, I'll tell you something. When I did that film, there's a period, I wasn't always the smartest guy as far as nurturing a career like a Russell Crowe and other people that make choices for their career. I was always like, when you're on a TV show back then, they had movies of the week. They had independent films and whatnot. And I used to just want to do them for the experience. Where are we shooting? Is it somewhere? I ended up in Toronto freezing my ass off most of the time. I'm like, why does everybody go to the Virgin Islands? And I ended up in the freezing cold Toronto. But it was all still good because you're working and getting experience. But Dino Croc, I heard that Jack Nicholson did, what was his name? The famous old producer, Roger Corman. Everybody's got to do a Roger Corman movie.
Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, well, you know what? A lot of guys that did well did them. I'm not going to say no.
Yeah. Oh, it was a Roger Corman.
So
it wasn't
a Roger Corman movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I all I can say is that it was an incredible experience, and I didn't like the title because it sounded like, is this, does it sound weird, Dino Croc? But I haven't even seen the film, but I remember seeing a couple of stills from the film, and I go, shit, this looks pretty good. And that's all I know. Was it a fun movie?
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
It's fun.
Okay, good.
Dude, even I've worked with Roger Corman, years after you did, on a movie called Camel Spiders, and I'm just like, this is insane.
It's the title, Dino Croc, Camel Spiders.
Camel Spiders, bro.
Ding, ding. You're there. You're back. I missed that. I missed a little bit of that because you froze up. Say that again.
I worked with Roger Corman on a film called Camel Spiders, and I was like, and then, even then, like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, you were like, you got to do a Roger Corman film. I'm like, okay, all right.
See, I'm not so crazy. Jack Nicholson did it too.
He's got a lot of people started in the business, just like Lloyd Kaufman. Tons of people started in the business through that.
You never know where people are going to end up. But at the beginning, when you're hungry to work and see how it's done, I mean, you're just thankful to go and play, right?
Yeah. So, wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Saw franchise. How did that come about?
Say again, you froze up a little.
The Saw franchise.
Oh,
how did that come about? That's
Mr. Mark Hoffman.
Yes. I actually have a pretty funny story about that. I remember signing with a manager called Mark Berg, who produced those films and still does. And I always liked Mark. He used to be with a company called Island Pictures back in the day. And he teamed up with somebody, with Oren Koulis, and they raised money, and they made this phenomenal, freaky, original thing, and they became so successful, right? And when they were doing Saw two or three. I got called into the office because they wanted me to meet the director by the name of Darren Bousman, who's actually really, he's really funny. We've become buddies. Yeah. And when I sat down with him, he's like new, and he's like, he's checking me out. And at one point, I get asked, have you seen any of the first two, which were huge hits, right? And I was like, no, I haven't seen them. Back to the beginning. Like, if you're going to say ride a horse, you better be able to ride a horse because they're going to catch you out. And I didn't want him to ask me which scene was your favorite. I can't say, that one when that guy dies, because there's about 30 deaths. So, I couldn't be specific. So I said, no, I haven't seen him yet, but I will. And Darren Bousman showed me no face and went like that, uh-huh. And we ended up talking a little bit more, and he left. And Mark Berg, who's my manager, goes, what are you doing? What'd you say you haven't seen him? I go, I didn't want to lie. He's your director. What am I going to lie about? He's going to ask me a question. I'm going to get caught out. I don't like lying. He goes, you live in Hollywood. Everybody lies. Anyway, in the end, I did get invited to I was actually asked, do you remember the movies well? There was a
little bit.
Well, for the Saw fans, there was a famous thing where a guy's arm gets twisted and his head gets twisted and his legs get twisted in this big thing, like he was on like a cross. Yeah. And they asked me if I wanted to do that, but if I did it, I'd be dead. Yeah. But if I took another role, we might be able to bring you back. I said, I don't want to die. Bring me back if I get a chance to do a little thing. So they gave me a little bit of a thing in number 3 where I'm introduced. And because I guess I did okay, they brought me back. And in number 4, I was introduced and I looked like the innocent in the thing. And in the end, I get up off the electric chair where Donnie Wahlberg gets his head smashed with the ice blocks. And I become part of the game. Yeah. Part of the Jigsaw family. So that's how it began. And you know what? I look back and it just seems like yesterday, but it was so fantastic to be a part of this train that was already running on the right tracks, Yeah. I just didn't want to get in its way. And they kept me around till the very end, until the beginning came again. And all I know is that people are still saying, where's Hoffman? Where's Hoffman? And I know how I can get out of that bathroom, but now they've made the one with Chris Rock. And that's like, they did the prequel. Now this is I don't know where in time this one is, but if they can bring me back, I'd love to do it again. And people want it, but it's all about storyline for the guys, I guess,
Yeah, I know what that is. But we have a couple projects in the pipeline, so we will contact you once we get it going.
Well, bring me in to work with James Russo, your buddy, because to be together with him. James Russo, by the way, everybody out there that knows who he is, he's one of the most vibrant, exciting, angry actors I've ever met. Doesn't matter who he's with. He always looks like somebody's going to get it. He's a wonderful actor, that guy.
He loves you, even though he acts all grumpy. He is a sweet guy.
No, he's a tremendous talent. And
he's like on set. He's like, nah, I'm not gonna say that. My character wouldn't say that.
Tommy, I'm gonna do this all with a look.
Let's do this. What do you think of this?
Yeah, you know what? I got to tell you though. I mean, I've learned to do that as well, because when actors know what they're doing, they're right, and when they can deliver like that, they never disappoint you.
It was way better than what was written. So it worked out for us. We were happy. So.
Good.
Funny because of this quarantine, we watched Ninth Gate yesterday. It's an old ass movie, but like we were like binge movies. We're like, oh, let's watch Ninth Gate, and boom, Russo, he's great in that too.
Yeah.
With Johnny Depp.
Yep. I mean, I've never seen him on a screen where he doesn't draw me in, and he was Sean Penn with anybody. The guy's like riveting. I remember at the beginning of a great film about the Irish mobsters. What was it called?
I don't know. Oh, I remember it was. I know.
Director Phil Giuano. James is in the beginning of the film, and the detective sitting in a car, and you can't even see his face at the beginning, and he's just talking to Sean Penn, and he's talking, and then all of a sudden it comes around and go, who is? It's like he was that good you couldn't even see him half the scene. That's how good he is. He's captivating.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, we love him.
Yeah, I remember I talked to him about that, and he was kind of pissed that they cut out some of his good scenes in that movie. I can't think of the name of the movie either, but
yeah, it happens to people sometimes. But sometimes they just do it because of the movie, but it's not him. It's on the tip of my tongue.
No,
before we finish this, if it flashes into our minds, let's say it.
All right.
All right.
Well,
It's all
it
good.
with Sean Penn, right? Oh,
That's
we
right.
lost. I think the
Sean Penn and Gary Oldman.
Oh, there we go. Sean Penn and Gary. Someone's like,
Oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Well, we'll put it down in the comments later once we find out, or everybody can ask.
Trivia time.
I'm sure they'll answer it for us.
It's killing me too. I can see the movie. I just can't. I can see everything about the movie.
Yeah.
Robin Wright.
Yeah, Robin Wright. Yep.
So
It'll come.
So thanks so much for doing this interview with us. I'm very excited about what we're doing with Horror Vision. We're going to start doing trivia and stuff like that. So
I like that.
We're going to see if some of the celebrities want to do trivia against each other sometime.
They do? Well, they have to. You can ask him a sword question.
Yeah.
Because I guess, I don't know when they're releasing the next one, but if Hoffman got out of the bathroom, does anybody have any idea how he would get out? Now, I'll never answer that question because I do have an idea, because obviously we want the movie to be a surprise. But I wonder what people would come up with. I wonder. That would be an interesting trivia question.
All right. Good.
Perfect, man.
Thanks.
Now, I covered a lot of ground there. I'm sorry I put too much into too many sentences, but if we ever want to do it again, it'll be more specific. If you like.
This was great. And I do want to do it again. We'll contact you next week, because we're going to start rolling these out on Motor City Nightmares, the Facebook page.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now I know how to do Zoom. By the way, you do look like Josh Brolin, man. That's crazy.
I'm a doppelganger, bro. I look like a lot of different people.
You can, yeah. That's good for the career, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Brolin is a new one, so thank you. Put that in the
all right.
copy that.
I will be in touch with you. Oh yes.
I want to be in Detroit. Don't leave me out.
I won't for sure.
Otherwise, you'll get the for sures. You know, the Detroit for sure.
For sure.
All right, man. Yeah, absolutely, man. Cheers, man. Thanks for doing it. Talk
God
to you
bless
later,
everybody,
bro.
man. Let's get rid of this virus and get back to work, baby.
Yes.
See you in Vegas.
Talk to you
See you soon.
Take care.
Peace.
Bye bye.
See you.